Nothing is more despicable than the respect based on fear. I repeat, based on fear. So, in this period of time, we also feel this. Eventually, think about our banners, think about America. After so long, after independence, still we face this thing. We cannot speak up. Why? Because we still fear of something. Now, before starting this, I would like to introduce the idea of 1984 by George Orwell, who has coined the ideas of how language actually can be controlled by totalitarian governments. And these language actually shapes the next generation's mindset, idea. This is basically racism. And how do we feel that? And from there we actually give our title, which is Newspeak and Racial Euphemisms. Language's role in shaping race discourse in American politics. A comparative analysis of Orwellian concepts and modern political rhetoric. I'm Janata Juicy, who will be presenting this research insights. So, as a totalitarian government, everyone starts with thinking about the power holding. So the power dynamics of them actually leads to their omniscient or like obligate ideas of language control. They control the vocabularies, they control the structures, they even reduce the ideas or words like freedom, independence, or similar to like protest, these kind of ideas. Now, the newspeak and language control. So newspeak is this term that is coined by Orwell in this novel, and we will learn about this later. Next, we see that linguistic theories on euphemism and race. So linguistic theories, this basically many researchers in critical discourse analysis like Dixon and Linz, they have pointed out the ideas of like harmless vocabularies or like some ideas that is actually portrayed in media, but eventually that leads to the racism. How? It's like systematic racism. How does that happen? It's like in current generation they won't understand what to use, what to not. But the next generation will not even eventually think of that words like, yeah, that can happen. This can happen. But some sort of words like freedom. If we do not use freedom at once, then we will not be having that freedom word in the next generation. This is where the whole idea of minority oppression or like exploitation in the races comes from. Then we will turn into the political rhetoric and racial coded language in the US. So the term which is called dog whistle politics, this is basically a coded language. This gives the biased idea for like oppressive minority and all. And then similar examples like welfare or urban criticism or inner city, this kind of words actually directly portrays the idea of that minority people, but without mentioning their name. So this is what we are saying. You are not using the name, but you are eventually doing the racism without even mentioning their name. This is the thing. Next, we can see the research objectives. Here, we will be discussing the newspeak ideas and the racial euphemisms that Orwell has put in his novel. Some similar things like double thinking or like newspeak ideas. Then we will turn into the influence of public perception and policy. We're going to see how public views will be shaped and structured by these kind of perceptions, and it actually masks the deeper issues like systematic racism, which we will be discussing. And then advocacy for direct language. Like I said before, like we are not using the direct language, but eventually we are not using the word black, but we are meaning them as that, and we are not giving the proper value of that word. So, in literature review, we're gonna similarly think about how these framing theories and impact of euphemism on public perceptions actually happen. And here, like reduction, removal of these words, and then independence, freedom, these actually vanishes. How? Like, think about an example of a media headline like racially charged instead of saying racism. So these kind of words that we use in media actually leads to racism. in the novel Orwell's novel, Orwell has coined this idea, like the totalitarian government comes and removes some words that can be initiate the people, the mass general people, to understand that what is their right and what not. So similarly, in the euphemism and racial code switching in political language, we're gonna see that how this supports the social power structure and what upper class society always abuse the power. For example, think about the headline as a black man encountered with police. Instead of saying police killed unarmed black man, this is where we come from. The idea of this kind of usage of twisting the language, twisting the vocabularies is problematic. That's what we are saying over here. So let's move forward to our data sources. Think about this question, which is we have found that when a newspaper reports on racist abuse or someone using a racial slur, do you think such words should be generally be coded? So you can see the idea of this. How many people do think that way, and how many people are actually oppressed by this? So expletives we do not use with that. Okay. Then the analysis part. The most interesting part over here is law and order as racial euphemism. So law and order, whenever we are using this word, this phrase, we directly associate with policing and strict policing with the minority people. That means minority